Portia, I wanted to start with your origin, if you don't mind. Where are you from and what were you into as a kid?
Yes, so I have a pretty interesting story. Both my parents are from Ghana, a country in West Africa. And so my dad, my dad came to the States to pursue his studies like a lot of West African people do. And so the first place he came to was Montana. So I was actually born in Montana. I don't remember it at all. We left when I was like months old because he went to another school because my dad has his PhD in chemistry. I'm like, Dad, why don't you just go to medical school? like so we went to a lot of different places of where my dad went to school. Of course, he's super smart. So I grew up with a very smart dad, a very smart mom, a lot of academics in our household. So I like looking back now, I realized that I was more of a creative than probably an academic like science and math person. But I mean, it was still a good background to have in case my creative fields didn't work. But yeah, as a child, I was, I guess, curious, creative, loved dancing, loved music, my love for music comes from my dad. He's a big music fan. Then he also said he used to be like the champion dancer back in the day. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But yes, a lot of music in the household, a lot of laughter in the household. And then my creativity just started to blossom over the years as I was growing up.
Love it. Yeah. So I guess, so by the way, I tell my family I was a champion dancer as well. Salsa for me.
Oh, really?
2 years, not a champion.
That's good. That's good.
What's Portia doing outside of work now?
Yeah. So in my full-time job, I work at a consulting firm, and then my business is kind of my my outside of work stuff. And then I also have I call it a small side hustle, but people would not say that it's small. But my business is I help women level up on LinkedIn. So I teach them the mindset and the systems that they need so they can stop selling themselves short and start being taken more seriously on LinkedIn, increase their visibility. And a lot of people think, oh, well, if I'm not looking for a full-time job, why should I even have a good LinkedIn? Well, even if you have a full-time job, you can use LinkedIn to leverage your visibility and increase your visibility within your organization. So one of my former clients, she really likes her job. She loves her job. She has great experiences at her job, but she's been using LinkedIn to really get her face in front of, the chief marketing officer, the people who make the decisions, the people who can help her along in her career. So I help women like that. I help women who are looking for new jobs and maybe they've been underselling themselves in various interviews that they've been doing. And so I help them, craft a great LinkedIn profile. And then that gives them that boost of confidence that they need to go into the interview and say, I've done this, that, and the third. This is the value that I deliver. And then also when it comes to service providers, so like coaches and consultants, I can also help them develop a LinkedIn profile that's kind of like a lead magnet for getting them new clients, because that's pretty much how I get my clients. So that's my business.
It's funny when people ask me that question too, I say this and they're like, that's kind of work. I'm like, it's not work. It's not like, it takes work, but it doesn't feel like it.
That's the best stuff when it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind, and I guess to the extent that you're comfortable sharing, can you just walk us through your career journey and kind of what brought you to here?
Yes, sure. So in undergrad, I was a business major with a concentration in marketing. But looking back on it now, I'm just like, a lot of the business majors, I thought that I would like learn how to start a business as a business major. But no, they like teach you how to work for other people's businesses as a business major. So looking back on it, I wish I had like taken advantage of, well, not advantage, take it like leverage the professors who were on campus who had businesses or like were able to operate as a business to get their knowledge and expertise. But yeah, so I studied business, concentration in marketing. I went and worked for a pretty large retailer after that as a business analyst. The worst job I've ever had. I had to get out of there. That place was terrible. It was just like emotionally abusive, verbally abusive. I had to leave that place. And so I got my start in social media. It's like a blessing, God always working things out for my favor. So I had to get a job because I just left that job without a job in place during the recession. Like for some reason, my mind was like, what's a recession? I'm just going to leave this job and get a new one. And
Yeah.
so I went to work at a small nonprofit and they needed somebody to do social media. This was way back in 2009 when people didn't really understand social. So I was working on Facebook and Twitter and then YouTube. And then they had their
Mhm.
own internal like community platform. So that's when I got my first step into social media. And
Mhm.
then after that, I worked for a pretty large nonprofit. But I stopped doing social media for a little bit when I was working at that nonprofit. But then the person who was head of social media at that large nonprofit found out that I had some social media experience and he started pulling me into projects. And by that time, that was 2015, yeah, about 2015 when social media they were starting to get some, to be some new things, right? So
Mhm.
people were starting to adopt Instagram a lot more. People weren't using Blackberries as much. It was more like Android, iPhone life. And
Right.
so social media was evolving more. And so I said, oh, well, let me go back into the social media world. And then after that, I worked for a relatively large association. And that's when I was a one woman show. And I learned a lot about social media there. So I was doing their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. That's where I learned a lot about LinkedIn as well. And then
Mhm.
just pretty much the person who did the strategy, the governance, and also the management. So I was doing a lot in one role. And then now I work at a consulting firm where I help mostly on the comm side. I don't do as much social media management in my current role.
Yeah. And then, you did talk about it a little bit, but can you go over, like, outline your personal brand and your business again? Like the services that you provide, who your target customers are, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so my business evolved from actually my business well, I'd say my business evolved from that first social media job I had. Um, they said there was no need for social media, but this was back in the day. So this was 2012. And they were like, oh, we don't see this being a thing that we need in the organization. So they eliminated my position. And from there, I had to figure out how to use LinkedIn to like find my new role because I didn't really want to apply to jobs. I was like, I know I can network myself into a new role. So that's how I got my next job. It was a contract job, but I essentially just started having informational interviews with people that I found on LinkedIn. And so I picked up those skills and then I let LinkedIn, fall by the wayside for a couple of years. And then when I worked at the large association, that's when I started figuring out, okay, well, LinkedIn is changing it up a little bit. So it's a little more dynamic. There's a little more you can do on the platform now. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to do more stuff with LinkedIn. I was pretty good at helping people with their resumes as well. So my business first started off with doing resumes and LinkedIn profiles. But now, as I started working with various clients, I just do LinkedIn profiles now and a little bit of social media strategy as well, mostly on LinkedIn and Instagram. But for the LinkedIn profile, I offer 90-minute coaching sessions where I work with predominantly women, as I mentioned, and we go through a complete revamp of your LinkedIn profile. So your cover photo, your profile photo, your headline, your about section, and your experience, with a heavy focus on your about section and your headline, because this is where a lot of people undersell themselves. They don't really talk about the accomplishments that they have made in their jobs. They don't talk about the value that they're bringing to these companies. And that's probably my favorite part of the process is making sure you understand that the value that you bring to these various organizations. So that's a part of it. So the 90-minute coaching session. Then another thing that I really love doing is teaching webinars to various companies.
Mhm.
So having their employees be champions, like I mentioned earlier, how one of my clients, she loves her job. And she's essentially a champion, or like I like to call her, a LinkedIn influencer on LinkedIn, because she's really, I mean, she paints such a great picture of the organization and her role that I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure people have hit her up and say, how can I work for your organization? So employers, it's in their best interest to have employees who are engaged on LinkedIn who actually like the company because they're the biggest cheerleaders and champions.
Yeah, 100%. That makes me think of a question. I'm curious to see how you think of it. Um, do you think every professional should be on LinkedIn? Do you think every leader should have a focus on their personal brand to some extent? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think when people use the word personal brand, it can be a little bit scary and formal.
Hmm.
But I do think, yeah, leaders, pretty much every professional should be on LinkedIn. You should at least have a LinkedIn profile, because when people go and search for you online, it is most likely that your social media handles will show up on that first page of the Google search results. So I always recommend to people at least have a complete full profile, and if you can, like, at least check in once a month, on LinkedIn if you're not going to be active. But I do think leaders within companies definitely need to have LinkedIn profiles, and how we define leader can be very different. I often give the example of Peloton. So Peloton's LinkedIn company page is pretty active, but they have one woman in particular in brand marketing. She's like the leader, like she's the superstar of LinkedIn, right? So Peloton can post, the LinkedIn company page can post the same post that she will post. Hers is going to get way more engagement, way more comments. So it is in your best interest to have those leaders in your organization. Essentially, they don't have to be the CEO, it doesn't have to be VP, right? It just has to be the person who people will gravitate to and consume their content.
I've noticed that with Peloton too. Personally, I think
Yeah.
part of it's like I'm a huge Peloton fan. I love the brand.
Oh,
But I also, there's another company called Drift. It's like a B2B technology, and they do a great job of that too. Like
mm,
their individual team members have their own podcasts, but they're like kind of Drift branded.
right.
I think it's just, I think people trust individuals more than brands.
You got it.
I consult with, I've been talking to this um, company, and they're super niche, like maybe under 1,000 people that would be their target audience. Like it's just like,
Whoa.
it's like science, and beyond that, like there just aren't many people that do it, and they're kind of hesitant to be on social media. And I think the problem with that hesitancy is, like, there's at some point a conversation is going to happen about your company. At some point, someone's going to look up your company, and ideally, you are controlling that or influencing that conversation. So I kind of think of personal brands or whatever in a similar way. And so what you said was like just totally resonated for
Yeah,
sure.
no, yeah, that's, man, like exactly what you said, controlling the narrative. Like you are the one who get to shape your story, right? So you don't want somebody else shaping your story. So why not have your, like, what you stand for, like essentially get your brand represented in the way that you want.
So I have another question. I've been through this, like as an in-house marketer, executive comes to the marketing team and they say, "Hey, I have a LinkedIn. I've never really posted or really logged in that often, but I want to turn it up a little bit and start leveraging that for me and for the company." Um, what advice would you give her? Like where does she start, and what's the best way to approach that as any professional, but especially an executive, like in that role?
Yes, she's got to hire somebody like me so I can never get it together. I can never get it together. I think that's a major problem with a lot of executives on social media who, like like these people, like Bill Gates is not writing his LinkedIn posts, right? Like we
Not
have
at
to
all.
realize that there's a team of people who are helping them. Even like even some of the smaller nonprofits, several people have reached out to me on LinkedIn and they have said, we want somebody to write the social content for our CEO, right? So you as a CEO, the best thing for you to do is just make sure that the person who you hire understands your voice, understands your tone, understands the things that you often say. So if you have interviews that you have done, like podcasts that you've done, video interviews that you've done, they can have a conversation with you. Then you can start to pick up, how does this person talk? What are the things that they would say and they wouldn't say? And then you're going to start off with, the CEO is going to have a little bit more of a heavy hand of editing when you first start out. but
Mhm.
eventually you're going to get the swing of it, and then you'll be able to post for the person. Yeah, the main thing is understanding what they really stand for,
Mhm.
and then their voice.
Yeah, I think judgment and trust come with reps. And I've seen this in the few cases where it worked. Um, you know, she's like, all right, I trust you guys. Like, I get it. But it takes some early reps, and that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I think the last question I ask everyone is, what's the kindest thing someone has done for you at work, or just, anything work related? Could be an opportunity, someone, just doing something nice for you.
It's not necessarily like it's the kindest thing, but probably the most beneficial thing is
Hmm.
one of my bosses when I was at the large association. He's probably one of the best bosses I've had. He really advocated for my professional development in a way that I guess the organization wasn't accustomed to. So there was one conference in particular that he sent me to that, I mean, not only helped me with my social media skills, but the way that they did the conference was so amazing. And the association where I worked for, they also had their own annual conference. And there were so many things that I picked up from that conference that I was able to take back to the team, and they
Hmm.
added elements from that major conference to the own associations conference that have been like very beneficial to helping them grow and run smoothly. So not necessarily, I guess it was a kind thing, and I guess he would just say that he was just like being my boss, but he didn't really have to advocate, to spend that money for me to go to the conference, right? To buy the conference ticket, to buy the flight, to buy the hotel, right? But
Hmm.
not only did it benefit me, but it also benefited the organization in the long run. So it was very,
Yeah.
very nice of him to advocate for me in that way. And I always felt like he was somebody who advocated for me. So I really appreciated him a lot.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Um, Take people with you. I think one of my favorite leaders has always said that. Take people with you. And I think training and encouraging, like giving the green light to go learn, is really important. Sometimes we need that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it benefits the company more in the long run. Like a lot of the times, companies will want to hire somebody outside when literally they could just invest a fraction of the money in training, get that
Yeah.
person up to par, and not have to spend the money on finding a new talent.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Well, this has been a blast. I suspect we'll be talking a lot more, and I hope we definitely stay in touch and maybe collaborate again. Uh,
Yeah.
Portia, where can people find more information about you? Is it your website? Is it your LinkedIn? All the above?
Yes, all of the above. So my LinkedIn is probably where I'm most responsive. That's just Portia. Sorry, my LinkedIn name is just Portia Obing. So linkedin.com/in/Portia Obing. That's
Mhm.
me. And then my website is portiaobing.com. Shout out to my web designer, Maya, who captured like my essence in the website. You'll see some of these colors on my website as well.
It's great.
And then, oh, thank you. And then you can email me as well, hello@portiaobing.com. That's the best ways to reach me. I can help you with your LinkedIn, sometimes a little bit of social media strategy. I have been dabbling in teaching people about Instagram video since they don't care about photos anymore on Instagram. So if you
Got
do
it.
have any of those questions, you can definitely reach out to me.
Awesome. Oh, I hope people will, and I'll certainly encourage them to. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I really appreciate your time. This will hopefully launch soon, and I'll get those assets to you as well. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.